How to draw hands. Hands is probably the most common thing artists struggle with, especially young artists, and I'm no different. I had a hard time with hands when I was really getting into drawing anatomy, along with the legs and back, but that's a video for a different time. Now, I don't really have a problem with drawing hands. I've used multiple ways of drawing hands, and I don't draw them one way. It's situational, and I don't really stick to one method. It depends on the workflow or how I want the piece to look. But I've learned 3 ways that help me. I have 1, the freehand method, 2, the skeleton method, 3, shape method. Pretty much all 3 of these you've seen before, most likely, but I'm gonna try to see if I can explain it a little better just in case you're still struggling with hands. But while using these over time, I found the one thing that really helped me, the one holy grail trick to drawing hands. Please just stop caring. The number 1 way to draw hands is to stop being scared of drawing hands. Don't be scared to draw hands even when you suck at them. That's it. Don't hide the hands in pockets or behind the character. Try to draw the hand. If you mess up, it's alright. Don't stress it too much. You have to make mistakes to get better, but you can't get better if you don't start doing them. I think that made sense. Next, this one's more like a tip than a step, but if you have trouble with 3D shapes and overlapping them, you might want to practice that more before this. You don't need to for a normal open hand or whatnot, but for more difficult hand gestures and different perspectives, it would help. Hands aren't that hard. Don't overthink it. I'll overthink it all the time. That's why I'm saying this. The palm of the hand is just a box. Some people cut the box like this, but I rarely do that. I mainly just draw the box and then just add a shape where the thumb connects. This will work as your guideline for the entire hand, so getting the fingers in, knowing their position, shouldn't be too difficult from this point because you already have the thumb and things indicated. And that's about all there is to it when it comes to doing the palm, except for the webbing we have on our hands, but that's going to be in the outline / detailing phase, where the hand gestures and fingers are laid out already, and all we have to do is add the skin / fat and the details. This is where the difficult part comes in, or at least used to, because the fingers make or break the hand. They make the hand either look normal, cool, or just unnatural. Plain out weird sometimes. But there are 2 ways I go about it. If I want to be accurate, normally when the hand is the main focus of the piece, I'll make the fingers look anatomically correct. If not, then I'll use what I know using basic shapes of the fingers and just make it fit my style. Meaning, I don't stress over how much it looks compared to an actual hand if it's not the main focus. Lines and circles. I used to look at the skeleton for the hands and simplified it down to lines and circles. Lines for the bones, circles for the joints and knuckles. It takes seconds to sketch, and it's a extremely easy fix if I mess up, so it wouldn't be nothing to correct it if it looks wonky in the early sketch phase. Then I'd use 3 cylinder shapes for the fingers and cut them. I don't do this all the time though. It depends on the emphasis in the hands on my drawing. If you look at your own fingers, they're sort of sectioned, and in this phase you don't really have to detail them, but that's why I add the 3 cylinder shapes, just to indicate that sectioned look when I'm detailing. You also don't have to do this if you want to. I mean, you'd be fine doing 1 cylinder, but that's just up to you. Anyways, I use 3. After I got comfy drawing hands, then I skipped steps and just started doing the shape of the hand, which was the freehanding method I was talking about. I would freehand them, laying the way I wanted them to look out first. Then once I got into actually doing lines or cleaning up the sketch, I'd start adding more detail. And for complex hand gestures, that's when I'd use the shape method, and I'd use 3D shapes. Also talking about a little bit of the anatomy of the hand, the middle finger is the longest and the pinky is the shortest. That's about all I remember if I wanted to draw a accurate hand, and if it's not in perspective to where you can't notice. And then there's the webbing, like I said, and for the back of the hand, I normally just use hatching and or some lines to just indicate the knuckles and things. Depending on how you want the hand, the 3D shapes part would probably be your best bet, just because you can see things so clearly if you know how to lay out the shapes properly. Also note that when you bend your fingers past the knuckle, they can bend 2 ways. You have 2 joints. So depending on how intense your gesture is, you have to keep that in mind if you want it to look, accurate. Alright, final step. Using steps 3 and 4, I draw however it is I want the hand to look with the box. Then before getting into the rest of the fingers, I draw where I want the thumb to be because it just makes it easier for me to draw the rest. I used to get confused on if the thumb was facing in or out. It still happens to this day. What I do if that happens, I look at my own hand, and if I see the palm, my thumb is facing outward. If I see the back of my hand, my thumb is facing inward. I'm not sure if anybody else has this problem, but I figured that if I had a problem with it, I'd add it as another tip. And maybe like y'all can call me stupid or something for having to do that. Yeah. Then laying in the fingers, depending on how comfortable you are with hands, you can use any of the methods. But the simple way is the skeleton, and then you add the shapes on top, and now the detailing to make the hands actually look like a hand. I start with the thumb and move up to the fingers, and that's when I start adding the sections on the fingers, and then detailing inside of the palm where the creases are. All I do is add lines, and like I said, if it's the back of the hand, I just add hatching just to add some, like, I don't know, coolness. Get off me. I was going to end the video here, but I forgot about some things. Proportion, drawing a fist when the finger's pointing at you and when the hand is rested. Proportions, when drawing a hand, I don't really draw out guidelines for the proportions, if that makes sense, but they look something like this, where for the fingers, it has a little curve just to indicate the size of them. So if you draw this when the hand is open, it would be proportionate. And then when you draw in the fingers, make sure it follows the curve. And the middle finger is the longest finger. If you look at your hand, and move your thumb and press it against your palm, it lines up where the beginning of your index finger is. So you just use that to curve it and then draw your thumb there. The way I'm saying it sounds weird, but hopefully the drawing you can understand. But like I said, I don't use this that often, very rarely. That's that. When drawing the fist, it comes more into play when I was talking about learning the 3D shapes. So if you look dead on at a fist, I mean, all the shapes are still there. It's just now they're behind one another. And I guess your box is thicker. When the finger is pointing at you, this is getting into more perspective. What I do is I just draw the cylinders, but one smaller, I guess, and then where the finger is pointing at me, wherever I see the tip of the finger, I curve it and then round it off at the top, like this. And then resting hands, I feel always look weird because like you don't really notice a resting hand in real life or anything like that. It's just kind of like a hand, you don't think about it, but when you're drawing, you have to think about it. Anyways, a resting hand, your fingers are pointing down and curved, and it would be one after another. Then at the front, you just draw in the rectangle for your thumb and then add the details. It's not that difficult. You just got to know to curve the fingers. Don't make the fingers straight unless you want it to look like stiff. That's a lot of info, and hopefully that was enough. But that's pretty much how I draw hands all the time. Obviously, I skip some steps now that I've been drawing this way for a hot minute, but I always say this, always use reference when practicing, no matter what. Like if you're just doodling, sure, you don't have to. But if you're trying to practice and learn something, use the reference, or in this case, use your own hand to see what it looks like. Don't overthink it as well. It's very important. I've used all the things I talked about in this video, and it helped me draw hands better. But mainly the mindset of don't be scared, don't overthink it. Draw the hands, even if you're scared, you won't get better. Running away from the fact that you can't draw them, that you have to draw them. I wish I told that to myself about 4 years ago. I was contemplating having a section for drawing hands in perspective. I know I had a little bit with the fingers, but I think that it would have been too much for one video. So if you're interested, let me know in the comments or something, and I'll make a vid on that. Anyways, that's how I draw hands. Hope this helps. If not, yeah. Alright, that's it.